Have you ever felt manipulated or controlled by someone in the name of spirituality, Christianity, religion, and end up being abused by a narcissistic partner using that form, using that style to be able to abuse and manipulate you? Maybe you're wondering, how do I actually identify spiritual abuse and what's the impact on your well-being? Like, what does it actually look like? There's so many people that are in churches that are in Christianity because it's prevalent throughout the entire world, the entire planet, of people that are toxic and people that are narcissistic. But when we bring into this aspect of spirituality, or I'll talk some about Christianity as well, you bring in this other piece that makes it look good, that makes it seem like there's a mask in front of the actual mask of a narcissist, and is able to try to manipulate and coerce and compel people to do certain things based on their religion, based on their spirituality. Did this happen to you? I want to talk about this today and kind of break it down in a couple points. Well, when we talk through this aspect of spirituality, and I'll probably use that interchangeably from Christianity because that's the frame that I come from as being a Christian and growing up in conservative Christianity and seeing that culture, we need to bring in this whole piece of spiritual abuse. Now, a good book, I don't have it in front of me, but a good book out there is called When Narcissism Comes to Church. When Narcissism Comes to Church by Chuck DeGroat. It's a really good book where it talks on both sides and it shows examples of narcissistic pastors, narcissistic people in the church, and how they destroy so much. So I'll use that as just a side note. I've got a couple videos that talk about that, Christianity, toxic Christianity. But anyways, moving through that. We first need to understand spiritual abuse by narcissists. Okay? Spiritual abuse occurs when a narcissist is using religious or spiritual beliefs to be able to get power and control over another person. This is where they'll try to twist scripture or teachings and use different spiritual practices to try to manipulate you to do what they want you to do, to make it seem like you need to be subservient in a certain way. You're going to see this most often in the aspect of going through the Bible and them being like, oh, the husband's supposed to be over the wife. Meaning, in the biblical scriptures, the husband is supposed to lead and be an example and actually show up as an honest man. Not, you have to be underneath me, therefore you have to serve me, therefore I'm in control over you. Giant difference. There's a different piece of where people go through the Bible and they're like, see, you're not allowed to get divorced because you're only allowed to get divorced if this person cheats on you. You can't prove that he cheated on you, therefore you can't get divorced. Okay, and then you go back into the Old Testament and you realize that the only reason that God said, hey, it's okay for you to get a divorce was because of abuse. Was because there was people in the Bible that wouldn't divorce their spouse, go out and be with other people, and then be like, you're still married to me, so you still have to come back to me. Sound familiar? A lot of times people want to manipulate and twist scripture for their own means. Pastors do this, narcissists do this, toxic people do this, uneducated people do this to try to say, oh, this is what it is. You might have been in a place where you were put in a position where you had to be subservient. You had to submit to someone else. And when you submitted to someone else, they used it under the guise of, well, this is my role as a husband. I'm supposed to be the leader. And all of a sudden you start to lose different pieces of you. You start to lose different freedoms and ideas and thoughts and hobbies and friends and connections because of that one person. But the hard thing is it's hidden under the aspect of spirituality. Spirituality is not about isolation. It's not about control. It's not about holding you hostage in a toxic relationship. But a narcissist will use spirituality, Christianity, religion, teachings, all these different things to control you and to manipulate you into staying, into being subservient. Like, you might be in a relationship where the narcissist in your life, he's used religious texts to justify abusive behavior. This is why I beat you, because of this. That's not in there. This is why I do this, because you didn't listen. It's not in there. Okay, like they're going to twist things, claiming that you are obligated to submit to their authority. So for all the Christians out there that are like, I'm struggling, do I get divorced, do I not get divorced, this person's abusive, all these things, like you need to understand a narcissist will want you to submit to their authority, not God's authority. Giant difference. Giant difference. Because God is not the God of abuse. But a narcissist will make you feel like that because they're going to twist the scriptures. They'll twist the things that are in your life in the spiritual sense and be like, oh, you need to serve me. Now, where does it actually come out the most and it's also hidden the most? Sexual coercion. Yeah, I said it. Sexual coercion. Marital rape. This is the whole aspect when the man is like, I'm the head of the home, so therefore you need to submit to me. Marital rape. That's what it is. It's this aspect of lording over the other person, saying, because you are mine, because you are the slave, because you are the person that is underneath me, by this spiritual text that I'm making up and trying to impose upon you, you must submit and get me what I want. That is not love. That is abuse. That is rape. And to see this over and over and over again in the spiritual sense, but it's hidden. You've been in this and you've been taught this is what you do. This is how you live. This is how you're supposed to conform. When you look a lot of Christianity, especially a lot of conservative Christianity, it is about conforming to an image. It is not connecting to a person. It's a giant difference there. So you need to be able to understand and recognize the signs of spiritual abuse, what it actually happens, how it actually looks. It's going to take various forms. There's going to be emotional manipulation. There's going to be forced religious practices, religious beliefs. There's going to be using spiritual teaching to silence you or to demean you, to put you down of like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm more spiritual than you. I know more of this about you. It'll make you doubt yourself, and it'll be backed up by something else, by a reading over here or a teaching over here or some person over there that said this one time, like all trying to make sure that you stay subservient. So like you need to look for signs that come up in your life of guilt, of fear, of shame associated with these religious beliefs. Like if you start to feel this guilt, this fear, this shame, we need to investigate it. We need to dive into it because it could be this form of manipulation. Think of it like you might be in a relationship that they're forcing you or insisting you have to go to this religious service, even if it goes against your own beliefs. And then they berate you for not being devoted enough. They berate you for not actually showing up. They belittle you for actually standing up for yourself. The thing with different types of religious and spiritual and Christian abuse is it still is abuse. Still falls under a negative way that a person is trying to control and manipulate you for their own gain. Now, what happens to you with this? It has giant effects, profound effects on your self-esteem. Like, who am I? What is actually going on? It completely rips away and destroys a lot of the Christian, religious, spirituality frames out there. Because you're like, if this is what it is, then I don't want it. Totally agree with you. If that's what it is, then you shouldn't have it. Because that's abuse. And it produces this struggle with your mental health, this struggle with a connection to spirituality, the struggle with knowing who you are, and oftentimes leads you down a road of more confusion, more disillusionment, and it questions your own faith, whatever that might be. You're like, well, I was a Christian, but I don't know if I should be that because if that's what it is, then it's not what I want to be. And that's where I tell you, hey, we need to actually have you look at what you're actually believing, not who you're believing in. Because if you're believing in the toxic person and to go off of their faith as being the demonstration of it, you're always going to be led astray. Like you might get to the place where you're completely disconnected because you're like, I don't understand this because they justified this. This is where I want you to reach out for help. To say, hey, what can I actually do to be able to figure this out? Like seek support, reach out to trusted friends, family, like people that actually understand, not the people that are going to further that frame of like, oh, you just need to go back. You just need to submit to a toxic person. Don't do that. You need to set boundaries of like, hey, totally get that's where you're coming from, but that's not me. I'm not willing to do this. I'm not willing to give you what you want just because you're saying it's in the Bible and I know it's not. You might have to go seek professional help, get counseling, get therapy, work through it. You might have to figure out what does that reconnection with any type of spirituality look like. It might be almost impossible to do inside that relationship because of the PTSD from that. But the whole aspect of getting you free, getting you out, we have to be able to help you see the truth, not his truth, not your truth, but the facts, the evidence of the situation, that his nature is abusive. What he's been doing to you is abusive. Yes, it's been put on top of like, oh, but it's spiritual. Yes, he's had the Bible and said, oh, but we should read scripture together after I abuse you. That doesn't matter. What matters is it's still abuse. It's still abusive to you. And you need to get out. If I can help in any way, talking to you one-on-one, helping you move forward in your progress and your growth, you can go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to help you. Would love to partner with you to help you move forward in the mindset to be able to get you free from the toxicity that's currently keeping you in a prison.